Yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get Savio on the screen. हेलो सावियो,
ठीक है
गुड
भाव।
मॉर्निंग, ओ गुड इवनिंग, सॉरी आपके लिए नमस्ते, कैसे हैं आप?
I'm very good. ठीक है.
All right. We heard you were not feeling a little well, a couple of days you were off as well. Hope everything is all, hale and hearty now.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty okay now. I was a little unwell because we're spending a lot of time on the new book that Amit Bagaria and I co-authored. So we had released the ebook, but there was certain additional information that would make good reading in the print book. So print takes a little more time because you've got typesetting issues, you've got proofreading issues that need to be dealt with. So yeah, I think it was our late nights that were really getting to us. But I'm back in action right now.
And that's how we like it. When Savio's in action, that's where everybody is happy and kicking. So again, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out for us for this particular stream as well. We really appreciate that. And like I said, we'll be talking a little bit, of course, about your book, your experience on that. And then we will also love to talk about, how you see this movement. And I'm sure you've been watching it from a different perspective. And we'd love to know your insights as to how you see this going forward as well. So first of all, why don't you tell us, since you already mentioned, late nights and all that around the book, how's the experience been, and how's the feedback? I saw a lot of good feedback coming in. You've posted a few of the good feedback, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Modi Stole My Mask actually started off with my co-author Amit Bagaria, already working on certain aspects of the book because he felt very touched by the misinformation around questions raised by people close to him, and also because of the sufferings people close to him experienced. I was touched of the fact that there were people that asked for a lot of help. We provided them with that kind of help, and then we realized some of them didn't actually make it even after providing them with whether it was bed space or oxygen concentrators. But what was mostly disturbing both Amit and I was the fact that there was a lot of information that was flowing, and that information was flowing in a lot of groups that we knew, people that are known to us, people that we genuinely like. There was a sense of fear, there was a sense of chaos, there was a sense of confusion about what is really the second wave pandemic all about. Is there a future ahead? Are we really, going through what you would call the apocalypse as far as India is concerned and the handling of the COVID pandemic? And there was so much of information, so much of questions we had as well. So that's when he decided, and then later I joined him. We decided to do as much as we could with relevant data, relevant statistics to bring out the truth. In fact, on the very first day when we put out the pre-order, we hit the #1 in India bestseller because people were already excited about the book coming out. Until today, we're #1 in India in the bestseller category in 3 categories, and we made it to #1 in 1 category all globally as well. There's a lot of feedback coming to the book. The honesty of the book is what's getting us a lot of feedback. I think at the end of the day, we were not trying to tell a fictional story. We were really trying to just put facts out and not even interpret the facts. We just wanted to tell you the facts in as simple words as possible and as lightly and as readable as possible. And it's turning out to be quite a book that people want to hang on to as far as information of the second pandemic is all concerned. So it's been a great experience. This was just the first part of our collaboration. The second part of our collaboration will happen in the second book that Amit and I are writing. That book is going to go global, primarily because we are focused on China and the World Health Organization and how they work together to cover up what we see as one of the worst devastations in the last century, in this century, where millions have died and millions more have suffered, yet there is no answer to what really was the origin of the coronavirus. And why did the World Health Organization take China's version so easily and not believe in investigating it more firmly? So there are various aspects of it. What we do believe, and I say it all the time, I believe China has unleashed a bioweapon on the world. We have beyond reasonable doubt on Goa Chronicle that there are certain very incriminating circumstantial evidences that actually show that China was dwelling and developing bioweb warfare related products or viruses, as you would call it. And there is all probability that this particular SARS-CoV-2 would have leaked from the Wuhan lab. Because, very interestingly, in 2017, in the defense university, the military defense university in China, they actually had a subject on biowarfare, and that biowarfare talks about the genetic manipulations via ethnic identities of a virus. So they could actually manipulate a virus based on ethnicity. So I'm not surprised that you're seeing two of China's biggest enemies, India and US, face the virulent effect of the COVID pandemic. US last year, and the one person who stood up against it was Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, of course, was his history as far as the presidency is concerned. I think a similar pandemic is planned in India as well. Unfortunately, they underestimate the resilience of the people of India and the confidence the people of India have in each other more than anything. I think the confidence that the people of India have in each other, then on Prime Minister Modi and the government, they underestimated that. I think people have come together to show the world that with a little bit of resilience, with a lot of frontline workers, whether they were doctors or whether they were, rickshaw people, bus guys, strangers on the road, nurses, people who just came out and helped. India has a very powerful resilience mechanism and a very strong humanitarian touch. And I think that's going to hold India in good stead. And we will come out of the second wave. We are seeing better numbers. It's not the end of it. We should not get lax about it, because there is all probability that there might be something worse in store, knowing China's intent. So I would advise, let's not be foolish like we did in the first wave and let our guards down, because you never know what's in store. Until we all get vaccinated, there is certain amount of what you would say protection that you have. That's not a complete guarantee, but there is a certain amount of protection. We don't know what the next virus is going to be like, or the mutation of that virus. So yes, the book's been very encouraging for us, and it's been a pleasure to write it and co-author it with Amit Bagaria.
Great. So congratulations first, on being the top on couple of different segments. But more importantly, you've always raised this topic, and you've been very vocal about it actually. Calling it the Chinese virus, how the Wuhan lab, and I was happy to see that comment of yours that you volunteer to go there and do the research, which we all know, they will definitely not be happy to see you there. But at the same time, you going and finding out or digging into that. But you brought up a very good point that why do WHO or other countries, why do they have to accept the way China is showing the picture, right? I mean, that's utterly, I don't want to use any wrong word for them, but, that's not acceptable to any of us, because we all know this is a biowarfare, no doubt about it. Why target certain countries, countries like India and US? And we've seen the catastrophe in US, looking at how these bodies were being buried and all that stuff, same thing. And coming up with newer versions, the mutant versions of all this virus is really creating, and we don't know what the next version is. But,
Varun, if I may say this, see, a country has every right to go to war with another country if that war is fought on the parameters and the decided norms of war. So if China attacked India across the border, and decided to wage war against India, I would still respect China in the manner in which China should be respected, because they came in the actual content of war to fight, and we were prepared for that.
Correct.
With the COVID pandemic and the coronavirus that was unleashed through Wuhan land, what China has really done is brought the war not at your borders, not at your doorstep. It's brought it into your home.
Home. Very well. Yep.
Now that's inhumane. That's really a war on humanity. That is terrorism at the highest level. Now I cannot, for the life of me, fathom why is the world leaders, or why are the world leaders and organizations absolutely quiet on this aspect of it, including India. You see, at the end of the day, the amount of loss in life, the amount of loss as far as economies are concerned, the amount of suffering around the world. You know, it's very easy for a political leader to say a few words and to say that, you know, all will be well, we'll give you certain amount of funding or you know, because we've lost a life because of COVID. But that's not going to take away the fact that that person has lost somebody, right? That money is not going to do away with that. So China is responsible for bringing war into our homes. And I'm saying China was capable to do it because there were certain people of vested interest, even in the US and the farmer lobby, that allowed for this to happen, knowing so that this was going to happen. That there was all probability, when you are toying with the gain of research, gain of research function that they were doing, there was always going to be a probability that that virus could have leaked out. There could have been something that could go terribly wrong with it. Yet they continued with it. And that itself is reason enough to penalize China and the concerned people who funded China's experiments on this fact. The World Health Organization would like to tell the world that it's the Wuhan seafood or wet market, the Hunan wet market as the culprit. But the truth is coming out now. What we said last year, you know, the most humbling aspect of our reportage is that exactly what we said in April, May, June, July last year is what's coming out this year with other media, you know, documents we had put out last year. And it gives me immense pride that the Goa Chronicle team was persistent from the onset, because the trends were very clear to see that there was something very untoward happening as far as China and the World Health Organization was concerned. It seemed, even at that initial stage, to be a bioweapon, because there were never any answers to why China managed to contain the virus spread, you know, in other cities in China and restricted it to one city in Wuhan. So there are a lot of questions China needs to answer. India needs to understand that China is not its ally. What China did was wrong as far as even India is concerned. You know, tell me most logically, yes. You see, when you look at India and you look at the US would probably have one of the most robust healthcare systems in the world. Yes, yet the healthcare system crippled last year because of the pandemic. India may not have the best healthcare system in the world, but it does not have the worst healthcare system in the world. Yet it too crippled for that during the second wave, right? Why is it that there are countries that have worse healthcare systems than India or the US not facing that kind of impact? For example, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, which is now facing some aspects, Bhutan, African regions.
I know.
Are there some connections to China in all of that?
Exactly.
It's not making sense. You see, logically, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Absolutely. And that was the pain point, right? I mean, we were not able to understand countries like India and US. I'm here in US, and we all know, we know there's a particular flu season. We know what are the precautions that we need to take for ourselves, for our kids. We know there's a vaccination, time frame, and we all have to get the vaccination here, and everything is all planned. If these countries could not handle it, why was this thing not attacking countries, the smaller countries you mentioned? And the impact that we've seen, it looks like it was very well targeted. It is like
Yeah,
very
but
rightly
that's,
targeting you in your own home.
but that is exactly what they were teaching way back. In fact, in 2017, the book actually talks about genetic mutation based on ethnicity. That is the subject they were teaching in the military defense school. So obviously they know what they're planning. They've been doing this since 1996.
Yeah.
There is hardcore evidences where PLA actually had the virus, brought it to the Wuhan lab, and Wuhan lab scientist Xi Jinping actually spiked protein the virus. All it needed was spike proteins at that point of time, amino acids of a particular nature that are supposed that allow for it to move from humans to in lay terms. I'm telling you that's what it means. It allows for the animal no, the virus to move from animals to humans. It's as simple as that. So it did happen and people were aware. In fact, the NIH database itself carried that information that there is a probability that this virus could move from animals to humans. So they were aware of it. Yet they spend that kind of money to allow for this experiment to happen. So at the end of the day, somebody knew something. And let's say even for a matter of discussion that China did not leak the virus deliberately. It happened accidentally. Then, even then, China owed the world an explanation on how it contained the virus, right? Why is it China is the only nation that seems to not be impacted by the virus as compared to the other bigger nations in the world?
Right. So sorry, guys. Looks like okay, Girijaji, it's quite possible my internet might be impacted. Looks like there is definitely some activity, but anyways, I just giving you a heads up. All right, sorry, Savio. There have been attacks on us as well. It
yes,
has happened
I can see that.
second day, and looks like my internet has just become a little slow.
No,
All
don't
right,
worry.
Girijaji, you want to ask a question while I just check this?
Yes. So you were talking about how one is, yes, they knew, China and US and so many nations knew that they are going ahead with an experiment that could be very dangerous to humanity. They knew that it could fail and the virus could leak out and that could damage humanity. Second is, even after knowing that it has leaked and so many people are affected, they did not let the world know. They could have immediately closed all their airports, did not allow anybody to come in or did not allow anybody to go out. That also
Correct.
they did not do. So how can they justify that?
I agree with you completely. That's precisely the point I'm making. You know, the route, I mentioned this in an article and in a couple of talk shows before. The route that the virus spread is actually Metro Line 2. Now, let me explain to you why. Because the Wuhan lab, the Hunan seafood market, the PLA hospital that had the first 4 cases, and the international airport are on use the same Metro Line 2. Now, here's the interesting bit that we must understand. Everybody tells you that the seafood market is the origin of the first case of the COVID pandemic, right? That's what has been told.
But your
So if it
yours
was a
article says
civilian,
something else.
if it was a civilian, Girija, then the civilian would have gone to a civilian hospital, right? Technically.
Yes.
But the first 4 cases in Wuhan of the COVID pandemic was the PLA hospital.
Okay.
They had 20 other hospitals around in Wuhan, which were civilian hospitals, and 4 military hospitals. Why did they take the first 4 patients to the military hospital unless they came from a military-based place?
Absolutely.
And the Wuhan lab is controlled by the Chinese military.
Yes.
Okay. Now, people from the Wuhan lab to travel home use the metro line. People from the PLA hospital use the metro line. People from the Hunan seafood market use the metro line too. So imagine if somebody was infected and was moving across the metro line, and on any given day there are 1 million travelers using the metro line. The same travelers are using the metro line to go to the airport. it is but naturally they're going to get infected and travel outside from the airport to other countries. Now on January 23rd, China banned the travel from Wuhan to other parts of China, which means restricted, not banned, but restricted. But it did not restrict people from Wuhan leaving to go outside.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the virus, the first 3 cases in India on January 30th were 3 people from Kerala who came back from Wuhan. If you check the cases in Italy, they would be Chinese people who returned from Wuhan.
Yes.
So the moot question is, why did they close it for the rest of China but left it open for the rest of the world?
Exactly.
And why did the World Health Organization chastise the rest of the countries when they were looking at banning travel to and from Wuhan?
Exactly.
So it was all planned. It's not a pandemic. It is a plandemic. I keep saying it over and over again.
Exactly.
China knew what it was doing. You might argue China hid the data. Of course, China, you can never believe China's figures. But the truth of the matter is that they knew something far more dangerous and were aware of it. I'll give you another classic example, Girija. The first case of the Wuhan virus in China was not December 31st, but it was mid-November.
Okay.
As per reports. So you had half of November, full of December,
December,
full of January,
February.
right?
Yeah.
January 31st was when they called, the World Health Organization called for what is known as the highest level alert by the World Health Organization, public health emergency of international concern. That was on January 31st.
But yet they
Nobody
did not
said
ban.
No, they
Even
did not.
January 31st also they did not close.
No, they would not close.
Yeah.
The best part is when they categorized it as a pandemic, which was on March 11th.
Exactly.
Now, the WHO in its own changes to the IHR rules or addition or amendments to the IHR rule of 2005 allows for a pandemic to be categorized by the Director General if it is spread across the world. Right? But they didn't do that. When they called for a pandemic on March 11th, by the end of March, that is when all 90 countries, almost 90 countries went for a lockdown.
Yeah, 22nd, I think. Yeah.
By 22nd, almost all of them were under lockdown. 25th was probably when India also went through a lockdown, between 22nd and 25th.
Yeah.
So what did you have? You had November, December, January, February, March.
March, almost full March. Yes.
Till then, don't you think the virus would have infected a lot of people to start spreading around the world? It already was around the world.
It was, exactly.
So why did
So
China
they-
keep quiet?
Deliberate.
Yeah.
Deliberate. Yes.
So now, just to add to that, I mean, even though we want to move to the other topic as well, but on this topic, do you feel whether an action would be taken, should be is a
Yes.
different thing, would be taken by countries? Do you believe that?
You see, eventually the people will cry out for justice.
Right.
Because
we have to.
3.3 million more lives died and many more are suffering. People will want justice at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So the governments that might try to hide it, they will lose their hold with the people. It might not happen suddenly, but it will happen. People will call for justice. But you know what I would want? I would want the world to actually go and do to China what they did to us. And you know what China needs? China needs democracy right now. The only way you can get back at China, I have nothing against the Chinese people. They are not my enemies.
Correct.
I have a problem with the Chinese government because this is unleashed by the Chinese government.
Correct.
Exactly.
The people of China must open their eyes to what they have done to the rest of the world. Do you want people in the rest of the world to start targeting Chinese around the world for what the Chinese government has done? Should we pick up Chinese in India and give them a dose of Indian kindness?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely
But
not.
there is a
China's food is
talk.
cheap. Go ahead.
So there is a talk that many nations have taken huge loans from China, and they have apothecated their airports, their properties to China, and so they're afraid of calling it out on China.
See, eventually at the end of the day, let's look at Sri Lanka, for example. Sri Lanka's got a port which is now completely Chinese, and you need a passport to actually get in now. A Chinese passport, not a Sri Lankan one. So that's precisely what I'm saying. The point is that at some point of time, this madness has to be addressed, and that madness can only be addressed by the people in China.
Yes.
China needs to awaken, and we have to break China from the communist hold and actually bring democracy there so that the people know. Otherwise, this madman, Xi Jinping, and the rest of the madmen in that country will actually go about destroying the world and not actually care about anybody else. Think, no. You had
But
them,
how
you
do
had
we-
the pandemic.
How do we reach the people of China? All social media is banned. We don't have any access to their communication
That is why
channels. Then how
that is a plan that the world has to work on.
Yeah.
See, look at the pattern. Okay, COVID pandemic. Let's get rid of life. What is China? What is the main thing China did in the last 2 months? Besides the COVID pandemic, it's altered its child policies in China. Right? For a long time, China had a one nation child, one child, one nation policy. Right?
Yeah.
Now the child policy has gone up to 3 kids, 3 children. Don't you think it's coincidental that at one side you end life and the other side you try to populate it with Chinese?
Almost the Islamist idea of increasing population and overwhelming the other minorities, right?
That is exactly what China's, you know, the problem. I'll tell you, it is more a psychological problem with China. China needed to have an advantage in the global scene of war, an advantage that the West, particularly America and Russia, had for a very long time, which is a hold on war and the armaments. If China had to have a distinguished advantage to be considered a threat, they had to only do it through 2 ways. One is economic, and the other one is a completely different kind of warfare. And that is the reason they got into this in 1996. To have an upper edge. There are reams of textbooks written by the Chinese military generals that actually propagate this idea that this is how we will control through biology. They kept emphasizing on biology, biotechnology, bio-warfare. Do you all even know what the space programs of China are? We don't even bother to read these things.
Exactly.
You know the financial strategies that China has employed across the world. You're dealing with a very smart enemy, an enemy that's completely driven by global dominion. It realizes that America is weak. It realizes that Russia has been fragmented. So by the sheer population of China and by the sheer grit it has in many parts of the world because of its money,
It's true.
it knows it can become a global power. It is almost getting there. It is how the world reacts to this entire COVID pandemic that will help deal with. Look at Biden. Biden's been raising the issue against China and the COVID pandemic, but Biden has just gone and revoked Trump's action against TikTok and WeChat and all these other social media platforms.
So Biden is, what is he doing? He's pinching the baby and rocking the cradle.
Exactly. Biden's going to do nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
If anything has to happen, it has to happen from India. China's biggest market is India. China's biggest market in India started way back in 2005
when the first meeting with Sonia Gandhi happened with the then Chinese Prime Minister. It was further gotten strengthened in 2008 when they signed that MOU. And since then, right up till the UPA government, look at the trade deficit with China. The entire MSME segment of India was destroyed, where China given an advantage. Even today, you might say boycott China, let's do this, let's do that. But do you know the dependency on Chinese-based raw materials for India or Chinese-based products? China has not been planning this now. This is not something that's happened 5-10 years ago. They've been planning this for 30-40 years ago when they realized that US is weak. Russia was already destroyed, the USSR. Therein China saw its opportunity. Because of its firm hold on its people, because of its communist regime, it has the belief that it can reshape the world. US is practically sold out to China. Look at every investment in infrastructure or startups or companies. You will see a China hand there.
Exactly.
That is the same in India. The amount of Chinese agents in India, now you're getting stories of spies on the border. There were companies last week that were caught that were offering loans in crores to China, to people in India, and they turned out to be fake companies, Chinese-run companies. You're dealing with a issue. China cannot be taken lightly. If you want to deal with China, there's only one way to deal with China. You don't deal with it. You just throw it out. Every single Chinese product must be thrown out of the country.
Yes.
Whether it's phones, whether it's raw materials, whatever it is, throw it out.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Because
And
what
Mr.
China has
Manjuman
done
can
is
do.
brought war into our homes, and that cannot be forgiven.
Exactly. That is very
Yeah.
true. You can ignore a little bit here and there, but we've been ignoring it. That's been the biggest problem that we've had. We keep on ignoring, we keep on saying the chalta hai attitude, right? Ke chalta hai, chal chhod, till the time it's not. But now they've creeped into our homes, into our rooms actually. Home mein bhi nahi main kahunga, I'm gonna say even to our rooms. Every single family, every single individual I've talked to, there was a point of time whenever I used to get a call from India, I was like, no, please don't tell me that this particular household also has someone infected by this COVID thing. And it was such a dreadful, every single call I used to fear a lot. And it still happens. So I think you very rightly said, to deal with it, don't deal with it, just throw it out. That's a very strong message. So I'm gonna.
But they have a very subtle way of getting into it. What they are doing, say, for example, if I go to Amazon.India, right, and then I buy a product, it has got a very American name or an Indian name, and then I'll buy it. And when the product comes, the packaging, the instruction, everything is in Chinese.
Of course. But that's what I'm trying to say. The biggest strength of India, I'm saying this over and over again because I deal with a lot of these startups and MSMEs and I try to understand where the problems are. If India had 10 years that the UPA government wasted in giving it to China, I can tell you there would have been so many more MSME and startup companies emerging out of India to be global brands, not just 5 or 10 people. We have actually killed the backbone of the MSME industry in India by giving China an advantage during the UPA era.
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Because they create this immense dependency. That's the problem. It's not that I dislike Congress ideologically. I dislike Congress and the opposition because they have made us slaves. We are not a nation of slaves. We are not a nation of free handouts. We are a nation of young entrepreneurs. Look at us, yeah. Our biggest population are young Indians who want to do something with their lives.
Exactly.
Look at the women. How much they're surging forward. How much they want an opportunity to be beyond just being a housewife.
Exactly.
They want to be entrepreneurs. They want to start self-help groups. Why did we kill that opportunity for creating MSMEs and entrepreneurs? Why have we made entrepreneurship so difficult in this country prior to this government.
Only now it is becoming easier, but then it is so difficult to break whatever has been set up for so many years.
Correct. China has invested in
Exactly.
infrastructure. China has invested in IT. China has invested in movies with us. China has invested in various different places. You are sleeping with the enemy. That's the problem. And if we don't wake up, China's banned Goa Chronicle. For all I care, we used to hardly get 1% of viewership from China. Yet they were so afraid that they blocked us, you can't view us. So we created a mirror site. Now you don't see it in goachronicle.com in China, but if you go to goachronicle.in, the Chinese can see us. The point is, if we don't break China, China is going to resurge up again. And I'm telling you again, we don't know what they have done to the virus. So if we stay back and get laxed, saying that now we have dealt with the second wave, there is no probability of a third wave, you will face an even worse wave.
Absolutely. Yeah. They are all genetically engineered. So it could be, the next wave could be very well planned. Absolutely.
So
That's
We
what
don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
We don't
Even US
know.
also, they are worried about it. Yes.
Right.
So I think
I know
we have to brace
this is
ourselves
one
for it.
topic which I really, and not only me, Sabio, I have to tell you, a lot of people like when you talk about this particular topic because we can see the anger, we can see the rage, we can also see the honesty with which you talk about this and the facts that you bring, to the forefront. But on a other topic, I really want to take a little kind of sideway, and maybe we should continue this topic after this particular stream. But on Sushant Singh Rajput, to kind of take a little detour. When we talked last time as well, we talked how things have been taken for a ride and all that stuff, and how a poor, a very intelligent, very very smart, yet very simple guy from a very simple town with a very humble bringing, got to a certain level, and how he was completely let down and brought down or literally killed. So having seen this movement, from an outsider perspective, even though you've been supportive, you've seen your couple of times you've supported, and not supported, you've said few things about this case. We'd love to understand from your perspective, right from June 14 till this June 14, this 1 year, what have you seen? What is your perspective on the whole movement? Whether you see light at the end of the tunnel, or do you feel there will be some, things that will be rugged under the carpet and all that stuff? So, what's your perspective on that?
Well, Varun and Girija both, to be brutally honest, which is really what I am. I firmly believe, and I don't require other people to believe it or not, because it's basically faith on what is right. I believe Sushant will get justice. Okay? And that's not because we have a great justice system. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm not saying that because by some great power in the government or in the intelligence agencies or the agencies investigating it. I believe Sushant will get justice because Sushant deserves to get justice. It's as simple as that. Many people don't believe in the principle of karma and the principle of right versus wrong. Sushant did not deserve to die at that point of time, and he was a good man. A good man's death never goes wasted. There is always going to be justice at some point of time for him and for the larger purpose of what happened to him. Look at the repercussions that have happened because of that. It has led many people in India and internationally to raise questions on an industry that many people were very silent about before. You have investigative agencies like the NCB, the ED, that are actually working
very diligently in tracking and cracking the underworld nexus in Bollywood. You have people in Bollywood who are now fearful what would be the outcome of their movies because of this huge rage against Bollywood post the death of Sushant Singh. So I believe, because I've always maintained and I always said that the real success of this case is based on circumstantial evidence. Because unless there's some proof that comes that's glaring enough to prove the murder, it will always have to be a case of circumstantial evidence. And in circumstantial evidence, I believe that the investigative agency, in this case the CBI, has to make a watertight case. I believe the CBI will do it. The truth will shock many people, or the truth might have a completely different reaction by people. But what I do believe is that at the end of the day, Sushant will get justice. But this is the first step. Mind you, the patience on this has to be longer than what you expected. Simply because even in a Nirbhaya case, which was really gruesome and horrible, the poor mother had to go through 7 years of absolute horror and torture, even at the last minute, to finally get justice for that gruesome crime. It's going to be the same as far as Sushant's family is concerned, as far as Sushant's fans are concerned. Simply because the justice system is that. You know, the law and order in the justice system is a long, prolonged system. So sometimes along the way, people get doubtful, people lose their hope, people start having, negative thoughts, people think everybody else is playing a game. Quite honestly, if you are not in that position, you don't know whether that person's playing the game or not. But at least you should know that at the end of the day, that the person with the fighting for justice and person is honest in his intent, then that intent will become true. It's not like that there is no God. There is always a God. You might not see how God works, but God works, right? I'm not being philosophical. I'm just saying that my inherent belief is that a good soul always gets justice. It's the purity of the soul. Think for a moment, right? Have you ever noticed any other Bollywood personality who died in mysterious circumstances ever get this kind of adulation and fight that even you all are sitting for hours discussing that? No. So obviously there is an energy behind that. There is a power that is driving it. Otherwise, why would it have sustained for so long, even after a year? By now, knowing the mental bandwidth of most of us,
Yeah.
including our media, they would have died in the second, third month of the investigations, right?
True.
But have you all stopped? What is driving you? Some energy is driving you. You don't understand what that energy is,
Exactly. And
right? I personally believe that there is a real powerful energy that's driving the fight for justice for Sushant, and nobody knows what that energy is, but that energy is the truth, the pursuit of the truth. And that is what will bring the justice. It might seem, I'm telling you even now, nothing can be answered. It will look completely odd. The court allowed for a movie to be played, the court didn't care about these are all, honestly, Girija, these are nothing. They will continue, people will do stupid things. There will be people who will continue to criticize Sushant. There will be people who will call him a druggie. There will be people who will make Ria, one of the top most adorable girls in India and the world. Desirable. Well, she is desirable. She took the desires out of Sushant all the way. That's how desirable she is.
Yeah.
Men are standing.
You will have that. But don't give up our pursuit. Because you don't know. I don't know what is the energy that's driving me for Sushant. Neither would you all. But we still sustained it for over a year.
Absolutely.
We don't lose steam because that's what justice is about. Justice is about going stronger when least expected. If it was so easy to do, then why get into it?
Right.
It was never going to be an easy fight. It never is. If I tell you, like the Bishop Franco case, everybody at the initial stage told me nothing will happen, nothing will happen. Did not the bishop get arrested? He went to jail, he came out, The court case is still going on. He tried every power, but the Kerala High Court will still listen to his case after COVID. So a little faith in your intent is most important.
Absolutely.
Because there's no other answer. I can't tell you why CBI has not closed it. I can't tell you why NCB has not cracked it or why ED has not cracked anything. But I know there is a power that's greater than all of them. And that's the power of truth. And
That's a
Sushant
strong
will
belief
not
we
commit
have too.
suicide.
Yes.
It is clearly showing all circumstantial evidence proves that it was a murder, not a suicide.
Absolutely.
And just to kind of add to that, Savio, very rightly said. I call it like the karmic power and also some spiritual power which is behind us, all of us. Give me 1 second. Let's not flash any kind of messages for now, guys. I know there is something going on, so let's focus on this. But you rightly said 11 months. Almost. There's some echo as well now. So Girijaji, I'm going to mute you for a second. Let me see if it is through you. Okay. Yeah. No. All right, Savio. So 11 months, almost 12 months in a couple of days. And this has been one movement bigger than any of the movements, at least that I've witnessed in my lifetime. And whosoever I've talked to, this has been one of the biggest in their life history as well. Now, looking at how things are, people have started blaming, taking pot shots at the government, at the officials, at the agencies. You having, I would say, experienced more working with different agencies, how would you or what would you first say around, the belief or the faith that we need to keep on the agencies? And second, you've already very firmly you've said you believe justice will be served. Now, having said that, do you have full trust in all the agencies and believe, even if it like whatever number of years or months or whatever time it takes, justice eventually will be served because the agencies that are working on them have are doing it with full honesty and integrity? Okay, now I'm going to mute myself. And
to be honest with you and Girija, I don't blame people when they doubt government agencies, because that's the portrait we put of government agencies all the time, whether it's media or Bollywood or television. So a lack of faith is actually a lack of the doing of certain sections of the media. But I do believe that there are certain very good officers in intelligence agencies and central agencies that are actually committed to their job. I think Sanju Ankari of the NCB has been proving himself time and again that he's after cracking down the narcotics as far as Bollywood is concerned. I also believe that the CBI themselves and the officers investigating the case will not deviate from finding the truth. That I understand. In the game of politics, you might think that there might be a probability that, justice could be sacrificed at the altar of politics, and that has happened before. It could happen here as well. I'm not saying it cannot happen. It happened here as well. But please understand that whoever sacrifices the justice of Sushant Singh on the altar of politics will actually lose politics on that. That's the problem. So I'm not saying that there is no possibility. Of course, there is every single possibility that every power possible will try and derail the investigation or derail the seeking of justice. But whoever plays the game in this, as far as justice for Sushant is concerned politically, will be the one that will lose.
So if they underestimate the power of this movement, this is likely to happen.
Yeah. Of course. I'm telling you, even whether they underestimate or don't underestimate, there is one power greater than the power of all central agencies and all governments all over the world, and that's the power of the truth. So I believe, you might call me an optimist, you might call me somebody who's philosophical in my approach. I'm not philosophical. I am optimistic, no doubt, but I'm also being very pragmatic and practical, because there are so many questions that people will ask. Ask yourself the sustainability of this campaign.
People have the energy to die down. How many of y'all continue the Nirbhaya campaign? When Nirbhaya's rape happened? The campaign lasted almost just 3 months. 4 max. Then anybody bothered? No. Why are people fighting for this case? And you all have nothing to do with Sushant, honestly. You all were not connected to him. Neither was I connected to him.
Absolutely.
So obviously there's something stirred inside you all, no? What was that stirring?
Yeah, I think
Why did we not see that stirring for somebody else during Jia Khan's death?
Or even as close as Sridevi.
Or even as close as
All of us
Sridevi?
adore her. Even today, when we think of her, we get goosebumps. But still, at that time, we didn't see this kind of story.
So what
At the time,
stirred-
also, there was social media. Everything was there.
You know why? Because I'm saying this over and over again. Sushant was a good soul. That's the difference.
Yeah. And not only you, Savio, I think when we spoke to Samir Wankade, he brought up a point on that conversation as well. He said Sushant happened to be the starting point. We were already working, we were doing something, but he was like a game changer for them. He exposed a lot of things which the mainstream media, the people around there, they did not want to see, or they did not even bother to see. But this particular incident, this particular death, opened up another can of worms, and now we are even more active, and all the criminals, all the druggies, all these peddlers, they are now scared for their life, and that is very evident right now. If you see in the news and every single update that NCB right now is giving, I mean, they are being caught almost on us, like every single day they are being caught right now, and I don't
That's
believe.
the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, exactly.
The point I'm trying to make is that really, you see, you need to have a trigger. That's what Samir Wankade is talking about. He's talking about a trigger. And I'm also saying that the murder of Sushant Singh has actually created huge ripples that is now allowing for people to actually get into what is the murky world of Bollywood and expose it completely. And that's going to take time, and that's going to take patience. But it will happen. That I'm confident of.
Right. Now, again on the Sushant, even though Girjaji, feel free to ask any questions or any comments you have. But Savio, from my perspective, looking at this Sushant Singh Rajput case, I'll just touch upon something that just recently happened, which was yesterday. There's been a chit chat about a movie being released, based on his story, something which is inspired. Let me use the right term. It says inspired by true events. This particular movie was being challenged in the High Court, and it was quashed that anybody can make, because they did not find anything. Now today the movie released. A few people watched, some critics watched. They gave a little feedback around this particular movie as well. Now, I don't want you to kind of talk about the movie or the critiques and all that stuff. What I want to understand from your perspective, morally, ethically, why such things are allowed, and why do even media want to kind of be part of this when they know this could influence directly or indirectly? I don't care about that, but it would influence, or it could influence the case as well. So why would media not abolish certain activities like this and be part of the right path?
Oh, okay. By nature, people like to use opportunities of sufferings of other people to
You mean
create.
sadistic pleasures, you mean?
Well, I think, for example, let's go back a little in history. When the bomb blast happened at Trident and at the Taj in Colaba, in Taj at Gateway of India, the very next day there was a film producer, Ram Gopal Verma, that went in with Ritesh Deshmukh to have a look at the entire carnage that happened and what the terrorists had done. Now, what was the need for Ram Gopal Verma to actually walk in there? But Ram Gopal Verma went there so that he could create a mental impression and take some photographs or videos so that he could use for his movie that he was going to make. The attacks of 26 on 26/11, right?
Yeah.
For example, let me go a step further. You know, when the terrorist attacks were happening at the Taj, the terrorists were getting information about what was happening outside because a very brilliant journalist of India, okay, was actually going out on television and actually telling them that, you know, now the commandos have come, they've entered through this room. So the people, if you run through the talking conversations that they had on the phone, which is a part of the information that the Mumbai police and the NIA have, you will realize that they were saying, हाँ अभी हमने सुना है टीवी पे कि इस जगह से कमांडोज आ रहा है.
Barka Dutt.
Yes, of course. You know, Barka Dutt's the one who likes to sit in crematoriums. It's time for her to actually be in a crematorium soon. You know, with the kind of wild journalism she does. Wild means absolutely sick. She's not a journalist. You know, I don't want to even talk about it. It's repulsive. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is people do that. People find it normal to make fun of people who have suffered because they believe that it will give them an added advantage as far as the movie is concerned when there is a similarity. That's why they will use lines like based on true events or, you know, things like that so that it creates a little bit of authenticity to the entire thing. Look at the movies they make around. You know, it's pathetic. It's some of the movies in Bollywood. There was this recent movie that came out. I think it had that. Who's that Bollywood actor who acts like a young guy? Salman Khan. You know, that old guy who thinks he's still a stud and acts with people who are old enough to be his daughter.
Granddaughter. Sorry.
Granddaughter. No.
Yeah.
Daughter is also fine.
He's
yeah.
60 and
there was this movie, that new movie that came out, yeah. Rhymes with Pade, Radhe, sorry. You know? So, I mean, I've had people tell me how that movie was, you know, and I attempted to watch it. I said, let me try and see to find what great thrills are there in this 249 rupees movie. That was, you know, you had to say. I couldn't last 5 minutes. You know, the entry.
Did you really waste your money?
No. I have it. I have the cables already. So
Okay, got it.
not on cinema.
Right.
5 minutes off.
Yeah.
All I saw was the breaking of the glass come in and the names, and that's it. I said, okay, I can't see this rubbish. That's the problem. The problem is they find it easier to make these guys heroes, you know, but they will mock somebody else's life because it's easy to mock. You know, who's Sushant? Sushant was an actor. Let's make fun of him. You know, let's do movies on him. His best friend, who was the crisis manager, Sandeep Singh, is trying to clean up his image, and now he's making a movie on Veer Savarkar.
Yeah.
You know, first he made it on Modi, and he took whatever little credibility that Modi has as a brand and took that brand also and then flushed it down the drain with his dumb movie Narendra Modi, you know. And now he's making one on Veer Savarkar, and I'm amazed that people are actually letting an idiot like him make a movie on Veer Savarkar. Yeah, what is he trying to do? Whitewash himself?
Correct.
After meeting people in Dubai, he thinks he can come here and whitewash themselves and get a foot into the Indian community by pandering to the Hindutva lobby by making a movie on Veer Savarkar.
But nobody cares about Veer Savarkar or Modi or anybody. Everybody cares only about their money.
Correct.
Otherwise, why would they allow that to happen?
Exactly.
I know.
Do you think they care about the values of Veer Savarkar?
Oh, not at all.
No, not at all.
That's a joke.
There's not an ounce of patriotism in those clowns.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. And that's what, you know, that was very, you know, ironic as well. To be honest, even though we move to a different topic as well. But Savio, that's the beauty, right? I mean, this is like a candid conversation. How was he even able to make that movie? You know, for a prime minister who is actually in service. From what I've known, you can make inspirational movies and all that stuff, but somebody who is serving right now, how could he even get the approvals or you know?
Well, you see, anybody can make. They want to make a movie. They make a movie. They got Vivek Oberoi. Vivek Oberoi was supposedly close to the BJP government. Vivek Oberoi became a director on one of Sandeep's companies.
Yeah,
Okay, if you look at Sandeep's companies and you study the fluctuation of money in Sandeep's companies, you'll be surprised. It will come to real low and then go suddenly real high during the movie making business. Then people like Vivek Oberoi exit as directors. The same thing was done by Umang Kumar during Mary Com.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's all known. It's there. It's there for people to see. It's not rocket science.
We did a couple of sessions on this, and when we brought it out, how Umang Kumar and his wife became part of this company. They were directors. They went out,
Yes.
and that was all during the Mary Com time frame. And then enter Vivek Oberoi. He does this movie. He exits, and now we are waiting for who's going to be the next partner.
Nice Manjekar would probably come in, or somebody else would play the role
Correct.
of Veer Savarkar.
Correct.
The problem is, what was Sandeep Singh before? He was nobody.
Nobody.
You ask the guys who know about him. He was nobody. So where did the money come from? Why is nobody asking that question? Where is he getting money to get top stars to act?
From
He was called a fender bender. I don't know if anybody understands, but I'm going to just leave it there.
Yeah.
But he was just
Yeah,
called a
yeah.
fender bender.
Well, we know what happened in Maldives or Mauritius, wherever that happened.
Exactly. So
The point is this. The point is Bollywood or any movie business that is there right now will always want to capitalize on grievances or issues that need to be sold or marketed. That's really what they're looking at. They're not looking for the truth. They're looking at creating sensationalization of everything. So I would, Nai or whoever wants to watch Nai and you know that movie's name, whatever it is.
next one.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's good for them. Let them go ahead and watch. It makes no difference to the justice for Sushant. It makes no difference to the character of what Sushant was. You know,
But I have a question here. See, this Arushi murder case, when it was going on, they released movie on that, and then after that, the parents got bail. Now the parents were the only people who were inside the flat when the murders took place, but still, they were released. Now, similarly, now they are creating a false narrative here, and how are we so sure that it will not impede the justice system?
because the justice
First of all, even how did they allow it? Because they know very well. You look at even the characters; they are so much similar. The dressing, everything. Every character is so true to life. And how they are saying, no, it is not relevant to Sushant at all.
Of course, it's going to be relevant to Sushant. I'm not saying it's not. They're going to use it as a pseudonym, but it's going to be based on real life kind of events.
They have
But that's-
mentioned it. It is based on true events, and the court is saying, oh, it is not based on Sushant, and they have given him permission.
let me just add
Correct.
one point here. I want to be also mindful, but to Girijaji's point, Savio, just want to add one thing. Even in the description, what they have done is, I think it's on Wikipedia or some page where what they've documented is they've named the characters that this particular actor is playing the role of Sushant Singh Rajput. This particular character is playing the role of Bhushan Chakraborty, and so on and
So
so
what's
forth.
that put forward in court?
Yeah, that's a good point. That we don't know.
You see, a lot of the court cases are lost because we normally have very bad lawyers to defend us. So I don't know what was the case presented before the court. Please remember, when they say that justice is blind, it truly is blind. That is why you cover the lady of justice with a blind cloth, right? So it's going to go by how good your lawyers are.
That's also.
It's going to go by that. Is it right? Of course it's not. But I won't comment on the judgment of the court because I respect the courts. I might not agree with their judgments. But as a journalist and within my purview, I have to respect the court because that's what I need to do.
It's true. Finally,
Right.
the lawyers have to present their case properly. If they don't do it, how do we expect the judges to know both the sides?
Correct. See, just, the truth about justice, because I come from a little bit of that background, is that it is blind. That is why it's blindfolded, right? So it can only hear.
Yeah.
It cannot see. So the judge actually is only able to hear your arguments and base his judgment on your arguments.
Exactly.
So if you have a weak lawyer or a lawyer who cannot be heard as far as the judge is concerned, then you will lose the case. And I think the movie itself will die down. It's not going to be a hit or anything of that sort.
It's already there.
Hopefully.
There's no scope for Bollywood anymore. It's going to die.
Absolutely not. I want to be very mindful of your time as well. I think we're at the top of the hour. It's always the case with you. 1 hour is not enough, never enough, I would say.
No, we go
I
with
got
your
about
flow,
10 minutes
and
more.
it becomes very difficult not to get lost. And it is so very compelling when we listen to you that we want to ask more questions.
Yeah.
So
I've got 10 minutes
blame
more.
it on you.
Perfect. Girijaji, please go ahead.
So, sorry.
Yeah, there's this gentleman, Harinder K. Bhatia, who's asked about 7,000 crores found in a church. That's a very interesting question. I'd like to answer that.
Sure.
Okay, please go ahead. Yes.
I'll tell you why it's important. Because this guy is a guy called K.P. Yohannan. K.P. Yohannan is somebody who's also been penalized by the U.S. authorities, tax authorities, for roughly about $37 million US for evasion of taxes, where his NGO in Virginia would, send money to India, and his NGO in India would collect money saying that we are taking it to Virginia, and there would be this huge rigmarole. But what people don't know, and which is what Mr. Modi needs to be a little mindful of, is that certain influential people in the PR segment had set up a meeting with Prime Minister Modi and K.P. Yohannan. K.P. Yohannan has met Prime Minister Modi, given him a bouquet of flowers, and of course that was a courtesy visit. There was absolutely nothing other than a courtesy visit to that. But that's how K.P. Yohannan would have used the courtesy visit to show the rest of the people in America and the rest of the influencers that matter that I have got access to the Prime Minister of India, and that's why I'm protected. So is he somebody that makes a lot of money based on conversions and activities like that? Of course he does. I'm not saying it. The US government has said that. The Indian government needs to tighten the noose around his neck. It's as simple as that.
So why doesn't
But will the Indian government do?
There should be somebody who does screening before the Prime Minister of the country meets somebody, find out their background, and then...
I have no problem with the Prime Minister meeting him. That's fine. I have a problem that what happens post that. So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't know what are they using it for. So of course he's used it. There's a picture that was floating around. This guy who did the meeting, I remember chatting with him and he's saying, we accidentally bumped into each other, and he was like, I did this. I set up the meeting for K.P. Yohannan because I was writing articles against K.P. Yohannan. He called me up saying, why are you doing this? Even the government supports him. I said, no, I don't think the government supports him. No, see this photograph and, things like that. I said, okay, so you are the guy who set up the meeting. They said, yeah, I'm the guy who set up the meeting, So that's K.P. Yohannan, that 7,000 crore that people are. I don't know whether it was all 7,000 crore, but yes, he is completely. Bishop Franco Mulakal, the guy who's accused of raping a nun and sodomizing a nun 13 times,
Right.
his aide was caught with 16.5 crores in cash in Punjab, en route to Punjab. And the officers of the Punjab police actually took away approximately 3.75 crores. So they showed that the catch was really about 12 point something crores. And then when they were interviewing him and questioning him, and they tell him, no, we got 12 crores from you. He says, no, it's 16 point 75 crores, where's the rest of the money? They're saying, what rest of the money? There's no rest of the money. Because the cops are dividing the money between themselves. So when he was asked what was this money all about, he says we got it from selling stationery.
Wow.
Stationery
6
books
months.
for a year. And that was not all. He tells the cops that 16.75 crores was this money I was taking now, but last week I took 14 crores as well, a couple of weeks ago. So on net they made 30 crores selling stationery. Now that's one business one should actually get into.
Exactly. Why would I toil like this and not sell stationery? I'll definitely do that any day. All right. I'm going to take, if it's okay, Savio, I see two guests sitting in the background for a while. If it's okay with you, and maybe take their questions. Perfect. All right. Sattva Health and Runaji, welcome.
Thank you so much. If you allow me to speak, then I'll be happy to do so.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Varun, Girijaji, and Savio. It's wonderful to share the platform with you. I'm a hardcore fan of Arnav Goswami. I'm watching him from the day one that he's come into the media, and I watched you there, and I have deepest regards for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, Savio, thank you. I wanted to discuss something with you about the justice that we were talking right now, blindfolded lady. We are taught from childhood, how we should believe, and the justice is given with blindfolded. What does that mean? Because it's supposed to be unbiased, but it is biased as of today. So I don't know the meaning has changed or not, which truly has. And talking about the film Nyay, okay, I do have objection about it. Why? Because it definitely is going to have a different implications to people who are not into the movement. Handful of people who are in the movement, it does not make any difference. But we are not talking about people who are involved in the movement, irrespective of Nyay or as many films that comes out. We will stand for justice. We will fight for justice for SSR, Disha, and many other cases, right? We're talking about the rest of the people, which is the majority, who have decided to keep their mouths shut, eyes closed, don't want to comment about it. They are going to talk more about it because I believe there is a clip of Sushant Singh Rajput used in the poster somewhere in the film. Irrespective of the picture used or not, the judgment is still not out, right? Like CBI says, we haven't ruled out 302. Well, that's not enough. They are still yet to give a judgment, and we are fighting for that, right? Before all that has happened, how does the Supreme Court of India even give the permission to release a movie which is actually based on the life of Sushant Singh Rajput, directly or indirectly? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, my question is, I have objection because any movie which could create another controversy and could probably affect the investigation, which is already in question, they should not. Probably after the judgment is passed, in whichever direction it goes, it makes sense. So I have a question right now with many other situations. The blindfold lady who we have trusted is any longer relevant with the blindfold because it's open. It's actually watching which side to go for, and it's giving the judgment, and we have no power except for shouting, screaming, or fighting for 1 year. Is this going to keep continuing the way it is? It's so sad, Savio. If you can give me a little bit of your feedback on it. Thank you.
Well, firstly, Runa, right?
Correct.
Okay. Runa, to the best of my knowledge, the Nyay movie was cleared by the Delhi High Court, not the Supreme Court. So I think there was always an opportunity for us to take the movie to the Supreme Court, whoever was fighting the case. But in most cases, when these cases go to Supreme Court, by the time the movie is already released, and most people tend to have a look at it. So it could have been dealt with the High Court. When you look at justice system in India, and I'm not very proud of it, okay? But I can live life in two forms. Either I believe that I have to work with the system that I have with me to ensure that Sushant gets justice, or I live with the fact and rue the fact that, hey, I'm not going to get justice anyway, everything is corrupt, and don't fight at all. Because eventually, what are you going to do? Are you going to come out on the streets and attack the concerned officers? Are you going to come out on the streets and go and attack the judges? What are we going to do? You tell me the most logical way forward. Because eventually you have to rely on the justice system and the law and order system. Otherwise, there's no fight. We're not an anarchy, right?
Correct. I do agree with it. But then when we all know, the Supreme Court also knows that the judgment that are passed in so many cases, there's actually not justice. So what I'm trying to say is they should really keep the eyes closed and pass the judgment, whether it's High Court, whether it's Supreme Court, any court, because that is where we look upon for actual justice, which is not happening. And I don't say it's only in India, it's everywhere, you know what I mean? But there has to be a control. They need to know that we are watching them. And if they...
Where was the justice? You know, Runa, if I may interject. You know, let's go back to the Nirbhaya case. One of the main culprits in the Nirbhaya case was the guy who was let scot-free because he was a juvenile when he committed that rape, right? But he was scot-free. It was after that there were rules that were changed, laws that were changed to make people who were juvenile also, who committed that kind of crime, responsible for the crime that gets committed. So in a justice system, you know, justice is always, like I say, it's a process. It has to be a persistent process to go after it, because somewhere down the road, you might think we are living in an idealistic world. We are not. It is a corrupt world. Today, even if you look at the larger problem to life in China, for example, and the coronavirus and everybody knows what has happened. But is any nation around the world actually asking China for accountability? The answer is no. Even though you have 3.3 million plus people dead. So the world is, you know, you can have two choices in life. You can live cynical, or you can live positive, fighting it in the corrupt, in the unfavorable situations that you are in.
Savio,
that's the only way forward.
Sorry, Savio, talking about China, we all are responsible for it. We are equally responsible for what China is today and what China has done to us today, because we have succumbed to their whatever, you know, we have progressed. Each individual, we are responsible for it. And the way we have pushed them to the position they are in, we're equally responsible. So knowing what China has done, and we are equally responsible, do we have to do that all the time? No, we don't. You know, we don't, like, that is one example what you just pointed out that should give us a lesson that it should be stopped right now. Savio, you know what I was thinking the other day? System is changing, people are awakening for good. I just had a thought which I wanted to share with you. If you agree with me, please say so.
Sure.
What I was thinking is, if the system is changing for good, which I would assume it is changing, and if it is, then all the political party, you know, whoever is contesting or whoever is in the system, everybody's background check, including their family, should be taken, number one. Number two, they should be signing a contract that all this, you know, in the name of their position, all the corruptions that are happening in the name of their power, you know, their sons or whatever, they're doing the crimes. Everybody should be accountable before they get the position. You know what I mean? Like, if they
I agree with you. I'm not saying no.
Yeah, if they are accountable, you know, somewhere, I'm not saying crime is going to stop. That can never happen. Crime will continue as long as we live. That's the world. But there could be a little bit of, you know, a fear in their mind. Like, for example, if the minister's son is doing something wrong, the minister's son would probably think that, you know what, I'm not going to be spared by the judiciary or by the law. I don't know if that can ever happen. It's just a thought that before they come into power, they, including their entire family, should be able to sign the contract, and that should be a mandatory thing. If that happens, probably crime could be eliminated. This is my thought for today.
Interesting.
And
thought.
I want to add one more thing in this. Sorry to interrupt everyone.
Just before you add, guys, only 2 more minutes. I really want to be respectful for his time. He's already extended and said 10 minutes. So just make it quick. Thank you.
Sure,
बहुत
go
जल्दी.
ahead.
सेवी सर, वेरी गुड इवनिंग. माय क्वेश्चन इज टू
Good
यू
evening,
ओनली. जैसे आपने अभी बताया कि वो जुवेनाइल के केस में लॉ को चेंज किया गया, बट हेयर माय पॉइंट इज दैट वो चेंज किया गया बिकॉज वो जुवेनाइल जो था ना, वो एक लोअर क्लास जिसका कोई ऐसा बैकग्राउंड नहीं था, ऐसे लोगों के लिए तो चेंज हो जाता है लॉ. वही तो ये ऑल्दो इट इज अ वेरी गुड थिंग कि उसको सजा मिली, क्योंकि हम लोग सब चाहते थे कि जब उसने क्राइम किया तब उसने अपनी एज का ध्यान नहीं किया, लेकिन जब सजा मिलने की बारी आई तो वकील ही खड़ा हो गया बोल के कि नहीं वो तो जुवेनाइल है. आई एग्री विद यू. मगर वहां पे क्या होता है, जब ये इतने बड़े बड़े पॉलिटिशियन, इनके बच्चे, इनके बेटे, इनके रिश्तेदार ये सब क्राइम करते हैं, इनके लिए कुछ भी चेंज नहीं होता सर. वही तो प्रॉब्लम है इस सिस्टम की.
You see the problem, Aarti ji, to correct a wrong in India, many people don't understand one very crucial aspect. The crucial aspect is the seeds of our political nature was sown very aggressively as far as India was concerned. And that is how you formulated a political system that had a lot of the corrupt or the powerful at that point of time that joined the political system. So what you need is a cleansing of a political system. A process of the cleansing of the political system started with India Against Corruption. But when people in the group of India Against Corruption actually turned out to be far worse politically and went out on a personal pursuit, in that case Arvind Kejriwal with the Aam Aadmi Party, a lot of people have lost faith in the idea of people actually having a movement that will be anti-corruption driven or bring about a constructive change, because the India Against Corruption movement, which was large and huge, was supposed to be the revolution that would bring that forward. But that didn't happen, right? Today, Arvind Kejriwal, the gentleman who said that he would not ever be a politician, he swore on his kids, is one of the most vocal politicians in the country. He's got a political party of people who have got cases of rape against women and a whole lot of corruption. One is even somebody linked to people who were terrorizing Delhi during the Delhi riots.
Exactly.
So you have to understand the nature of the beast in this case. The problem with us as individuals, and because we are now living in the age of knowledge, I think it's very important for us to take a step back and analyze what the problems are. Because when you understand the problems, can you bring a solution? The problems are not what you see on the surface. The problems are what are at the roots.
Roots, exactly, sir.
How are political leaders? Weren't political leaders the zamindars or the powerfuls, the thugs in those areas that were able to form, get votes, and that is why they became politicians? What were Lalu Prasad Yadav and all?
True.
They were all thugs, right?
Right. Sir.
What was the Shiv Sena? I mean, no matter how well dressed Aditya Thackeray or Uddhav Thackeray are right now, what was the Shiv Sena? What is the Shiv Sena? What is the Trinamool?
You're absolutely right. Can I ask one direct question? Is the Mumbai Mafia run by Peshawari Khatri Jews and Khans, and they're internally connected to the deep state in US, and the US judiciary run by the deep state under Jew Chomsky is controlling the Indian judiciary, and that's the reason we are not getting justice for SSR?
I'll tell you what I can say. I don't have direct answer to your questions, but if you analyze some of the bomb blasts that happened in India, you will realize there's definitely a Jewish diamond cartel connect to it. In some form, there's some cartel connect that has a rivalry between each other. So if you see, one of the things that happened in the first most common aspect of what happened in the Bombay bomb blast at Taj and Trident was there was a Diamond Council meeting happening at Taj and Trident at that point of time. very strangely, most of the top leaders of the Diamond Council were out off Taj before the terror attack started. Sorry, not bomb blast, but terror attack. The same case happened during the bomb blast on the trains. The compartments that were targeted were the first class compartments around that time, which had a lot of diamond merchants going back home to the suburbs. Some links to diamond are always there. There is a Jewish cartel. There is also the other diamond cartel that controls. There are really two big cartels in the world. So is the Jewish involved in it? I can't really say for certain. I think there is a great game going on, which involves a lot of international players as far as India is concerned. That is why it's very important to keep our sanity as far as our Indic culture is concerned, and as far as our Indic principles are concerned.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Savage. One last question.
Varun, I
Is
just want
the
to.
Palgar lynching
Sir, Sattvaji, while I understand, but I think we also have to be a little mindful of the time. Please, sir. We let you in.
Well, let him go ahead with Satwa,
Okay.
the
Sure.
Palgar question. I'm fine
All
with
right, please go ahead.
Yeah, Savaji, is the child trafficking gang the common key between Disha, Salyan, SSR, and Palgar lynching case? Is child trafficking the main issue because of which SSR?
Well, I can tell you what I know. I know that something in what Disha knew was what Sushant knew as well. And that something really deals with a very dark underbelly of the Mumbai Bollywood industry, which has a nexus with Bollywood politician and police nexus. Whether it involves child trafficking or not, I can't comment on that right now. But I do know that there's a huge underbelly that exists that is linked to what many people don't know, but I term it, and it's termed in the world as snuff, which is snuff porn, that could have had something to do, because there's a lot of noise around that. And that's the kind of noise that you find on the dark net. So there's something very untowards that they knew, that they had to have been something that was really powerful. Some information that was so powerful that it could disintegrate people in political lobbies, people in Bollywood, people in the police section. That was what the powerful. So what could have been so powerful that an entire missionary went after him, went after Arnab Goswami? What? People are asking me about Arnab asking a lot of questions. I will answer that. I spoke to Arnab roughly about, now it should be about 11 or 12 days ago. Okay. I have chatted with him on messaging about 6 days ago. And to all that, I was told at that point of time that he was taking a long break. He's been answering my messages on certain questions with appropriate replies. The last message was about 6 days ago. Other than that, I really don't know which part of the information flowing out is worrying some, because I think he's perfectly okay. Because if he was not okay, I would at some point of time got the message that he was unwell or not okay. More importantly, if he was unwell and he had COVID or any other sickness, he would have told me that I had it. No, there's no need for him to hide. Right? I mean, we're friends, we're thicker than friends. So he would have called up. So I don't think we need to worry. I think maybe he needs a space. Please understand that Arnab has also spent 3 years without taking a holiday. The last 1 year has been probably, as good as having 3 years of nail biting life, the last year. So a month or more of a holiday is not going to change him. In fact, I think it will bring him far more rejuvenated and aggressive. So I'm not, I don't pry on his personal life or his holidays, simply because if I had to take a holiday and somebody asked me, why are you taking a holiday, I would feel really offended. I understand he needs a holiday. So that's what I know. If there's anything else that somebody has, where he has spoken to them and told them that he's not on a holiday, he's sick, he's lying somewhere with COVID, or not sick, he's probably in Bahamas, or Jamaica, he's gone somewhere, please do share, because I can only share what I know.
Varun, allow me to finish my point. I'm mindful about time, but I just want to make quick points to Savio.
Sure, sure.
Savio, I completely agree with you when you talk about Arnav. Like, Arnav has done his job. It's our job right now to take it over. Whether it's in Bahama, Jamaica, wherever he is in Mars, it really shouldn't bother us. He has done more than what he should do. He has put his life into stake. He's gone to Taloja. We haven't. So I don't think we should question where he is and what he's done. He's done
Exactly.
what I think, and his team is doing the job. What else do you want? And
Precisely.
and he has to run an organization. It's not a joke. I'm a business person. I do understand there is some finance required to run the organization, who is giving us good information, which is Republic Bharat, Republic Bangla. He's got big plans. So I think we should not talk anything about Arnav. He has his right to enjoy his life, take
Exactly.
or whatever, So it's our time
You
to
know,
take over.
Runa, one strange person on Twitter sent me a message which really annoyed me, but I normally don't react when I'm annoyed. Said, Arnab owes us an answer to tell us where he is.
Bullshit.
I was exasperated. I said, listen, man, I don't even want to answer your stupid, direct message. First of all, you DM me, which irritates me. Okay.
No, Samuel, if I was in your place, I would tell him, please come back to Bombay, go to Taloja jail, live there for 7 days, and then talk to me. Don't open your mouth about Arnav. He's done his
There's
job.
no need to conflict with people in that.
I know. I'm just saying, like, it irritates me.
I think people like Arnab have deserved the right for a good holiday.
Absolutely.
But most importantly, he deserves the right to choose whether he wants to come on his channel or not. No.
True.
I mean, I am not able to understand. Okay, it's like saying Savio doesn't write on Goa Chronicle for 1 month because he's busy writing a book. Does that mean Goa Chronicle is dying? No. You have a team, right? I mean, grow up, people, for crying out loud.
Savio, I even have objection when people say why Republic is quiet. Damn it, there are 1,000 employees. They have filed a case. He's got to take care of his employee as well. It's their life at stake too. You got to understand that bigger picture rather than just saying why Arnav. Arnav is not the only guy. We have our responsibilities.
Runa, to be more precise, now let's assume for a moment everybody was complaining that Arnab, this is within certain circles in media, that Arnab always hogs the limelight. Arnab is always on the show. He was on the English channel, then he was on the Hindi channel, then he was on the Bengali channel. Now he's not there. He's given it to his team. You're still complaining.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. He's
Yeah.
giving the young team an opportunity to grow. What the hell is your problem here?
What the hell is your problem? And tell me which media platform. I mean, you know what? My heart cries. The day he was taken to Taloja jail, I was watching live and I called up Republic. I was literally like, if I could fly back and hold him. I mean, those moments are something that aggravates you. That how can somebody be treated? Somebody like Arnav Goswami, and because he was fighting for the truth, he was treated the way he was.
You see, Runa, I'll tell you this, and I'll tell the people who are listening to this show, irrespective of what you think about Arnab Goswami, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's ugly, that will never change my opinion about him, because I know this man.
Absolutely.
I treat him as an elder brother. I know what he is in his heart. And I know you might dislike him for many things, or you might love him for many things. Eventually, he is a human and a good human being. And that is what matters to me. It doesn't matter to me whether he's Arnab, the editor-in-chief of Republic. I knew him before that. And I know this man's heart is in the right place. And that is what matters to me in any relationship.
But
So
Savio
when I
is perfect, right?
say he's a brother, when I'm close to him, I had people act strange, call me, we want to talk to him. You want to know how Arnab is? I'll tell you how Arnab is. A person was on his dying bed. And the same period when Arnab was not available, not seen, no messaging, nothing to anybody. I called him up. I said, Arnab, there's a friend's father who's on the bed. He's an army personnel. His last wish is to speak to you. Both the wife, the mother,
the husband and the wife, they were aged people of a friend of mine. You know what Arnab does? He says, Savio, 5 minutes. I'll just set my mind up. Give me the numbers. I'll talk to them. So Arnab called them. Out of this so-called nonsense that people are spreading around, that Arnab must be sick, Arnab must be somewhere else, Arnab is scared. What should Arnab be scared of? The mafia, he's taken on the mafia. This man called that man who was on his dying bed and spoke to him. That man is doing well today. Now that is Arnab. So people that don't hold a candle about Arnab to me. I know his good qualities and bad. And the man is a good man. That's the only thing that matters.
Savio,
Right.
right now my camera
I think
is on.
I think we can definitely continue with Savio for the whole evening. I can see.
Okay, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. Savio, my camera can't be on right now, but one day I'll just switch on my camera and I will tell you that while you're speaking, my hands are folded. And please convey to Arnab Goswami, he's like a little brother to me. He stays in our heart, and tell him that he can take as long as a holiday he deserves, he rightfully deserves. And we pray wherever he is, he should be safe and happy with his family. That's all that we pray for. And I would request you to come again and again and talk good about Arnab. You know why? More so because we have lost SSR. We are crying for his soul. It is our duty to protect who really fight for the cause, like Arnab Goswami. And I fold my hands and I tell him, brother, be safe and be happy wherever you are. And you need to come when you think it's the right time. This is all that I have to say. And another request, which I was telling you earlier, please think about it. Savio, people like you are the freedom fighter of today's war. You got a pen in your hand and you can really fight the war. And the suggestion that I gave it to you, that politicians or all these bureaucrats, whoever has got this position, they and their family should have a contract where any involvement, they will be questioned. And, just to I'm just not able to manifest it properly, but you get my point, what I'm trying to say. And you guys are strong and we will support you. Whatever you want, we'll support you as long as you guys get the change in the system. Thank you so much for your time. We'll catch you later again.
You.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Varun.
All
Bye,
right.
Teja.
Okay,
God bless.
thank you so much. Just one last comment, Savio, before you leave. First of all, thank you so much again for extending beyond what you
No need to
promised,
thank.
and I really appreciate
No need
that. And on a lighter note, people are asking, when are you starting your own kind of network, and when can we see you more often?
Okay. Well, I will be starting off 2 shows on the NewsX channel by next month. ITV Network, that owns the NewsX channel, and KMV, which is my company that owns Goa Chronicle, have tied up. We plan to bring 2 shows. One is a discussion-based show and based on a traditionally used format of discussions, which we have lost in the Indian media for some time. And the other is an investigative report. So we will be doing, hardcore investigations on social and political issues, not only in India, but globally as well. We will be looking at very, very difficult questions to be asked of people. Some might not like it, but knowing my team is bent, the bent of mind of my team is investigation. So the kind of program we will do will end up being more investigative in feel and look.
Perfect.
But
Looking forward.
definitely something to look out for, and I'm very excited. I think God's been very kind. We started off humbly as a online portal from Goa. Today we are being considered to be very globally recognized for the kind of work that we do, and this has come because I think God's been kind with the blessings. Ma Saraswati has always stood by us, and I'll tell you, Varun, there's nothing. A lot of people think I'm idealistic. I'm not idealistic. I'm telling you, there's a lot of power in truth. If you pursue it, you might not have money at this point of time. We don't have that. But we have a lot of grit, that है, कुछ करना है देश के लिए और सच के पीछे जाना है हमें, you know. That's what's driving us, and I'm glad and I'm grateful that we have such a powerful team with me, all youngsters who work with us very diligently, and I'm sure you will see stars coming out of the team because they think like the way we want journalists to think, and I'm grateful. I'm actually very humbled by the love I've received from a lot of people who read Goa Chronicle. I think that's what I love. I come from a middle class family. I've seen wealth and I have not seen wealth, but that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is I want people to see the truth for what it is. I want people to be people. You know, I was doing a course, an online course at Harvard recently, which I completed on religion, peace, and conflict. And it's very strange when you see conflict around the world. And there's a beautiful line on the Galton's theory of describing conflict, that peace is not the absence of conflict, but peace is really is basically when violence is there. Conflict will always continue. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is when peace is disturbed when violence happens. So conflict will continue. We will always have difference of opinions. In fact, I was telling my friends at Coup, I've moved most of my news engagements now on Coup, and I will be slowly diluting my presence on Twitter, simply because I will only come there because I see Twitter as a gutter right now. So I will come there to clean whichever cockroaches are available on Twitter that needs to be treated with a hit, only because they're anti-national in nature. But I mostly moved to Coup, and I was telling Coup as well, you don't need Coup to be right-wing. That's not what the future of Coup should be. The future of Coup should be that it must allow all forms of voices, even voices of dissent, simply because you can learn. But what must not be tolerated is in your voice of dissent is abuse or breaking of the laws of India in that voice of your dissent, because eventually everybody has a right to dissent.
Yes.
You might, like I've always said, it's not my issue with the farmers' protest. It's the manner in which you dissent that I have a problem with. Dissent is right. There is a law for that. In a democracy, you have a right to dissent.
Yes.
So that's really what it is. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, sir.
God bless
And
you all.
do let me know if you're hiring, okay?
Yeah, sure. I will.
All right. Thank you so much. Take
Bye.
care. So, sir, for the time. Yeah. All right.
Thanks a
Sorry,
lot.
Narendra ji.